Hello, it's 7 p.m. in sunny Britain, where we have a two-tier legal system and an awful Prime Minister that likes taking money away from pensioners for their winter fuel allowance. Now he wants to take it away from disabled people. Well, we're going to not worry about that. We're going to talk about some good things. And the first good thing I'm going to talk about is my guest, who is the world's top nutritionist. It's Richard Smith. Hi, Richard.
Stephen, good day, kind sir.
Good day.
Looking well tanned out.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, I've been in the sun, and I think I've got that glow of being in the sun. But there you go. Yeah, we got lots of questions, and we got some super chats already. So let's put those on the screen and thank Carnivore Muscle, Jonathan. Let's start promoting these guys much more. He's been a member for 2 months. He's been a member for longer, actually. He dipped out and then came back in, which is very nice. Good support. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Let's start promoting these guys much more. So that's, I think he's done one for one channel, one for another, which is nice.
Massively appreciated.
He's a good guy. He's one of the good guys, and he's present now. Right. Okay. So we've got tons of questions, but I don't know if you wanted to quickly talk about my little experiment.
Let's do it. Interesting results.
We do that. All right, let's share a screen just so people can see what we're doing. Yeah, okay. So basically, this guy, who I used to like, is just making stuff up. And we did a video, which was a very anti-Ken Berry, anti-Sean Baker video. And he was saying things like, sorry, Richard, there's still feedback, is there? Right, okay. Any better?
I can only tell when I talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's when you talk. All right, great. Okay. So yeah. And he was saying things like, 100 and, he's never in ketosis. Sean Baker's never in ketosis. I've seen his bloods. Well, he hasn't seen his ketones. And you can have 80 to 90 milligrams per deciliter blood glucose and still be in ketosis. So as we haven't got continual ketone monitors, I've had to use the end of my fingers to prove this twat, completely wrong. So here we go. Now, the annoying thing is the play button is right across the figures. Let me just see if let's see if I can move that. Right. Let's move that to there. Right now. He claims you can have high blood glucose, like 88 is really bad, but you can't be in ketosis. But you can be in ketosis. I was in a moderate level, and that was on Thursday, the 8th of May, just when I first saw the video. And I thought, well, I'm just going to keep monitoring. And he was going on about ketones aren't the preferred fuel. But, what's happening here is the glucose is going down, and the ketones is going up. This is 6 p.m. in the evening on Thursday. And then glucose going down, ketones going up, glucose going down. You see, high. Now, I woke up on the Saturday and had very low blood glucose. Some people might think that is hypoglycemic. Of course, it isn't. And then my ketones were higher than my blood glucose. So anyway, we're just going to keep going. So no dawn phenomena for me. And then we've got, just to give you sort of what is 4.4? Well, that's 79 milligrams per deciliter. And pretty much even. But there is some really big things coming up that I just want to talk about. So my ketones are now higher. Fat-adapted people seem to prefer ketones. So shouting out your point is a bit flawed. Because even though you've got high blood glucose, just 80 milligrams per deciliter, doesn't mean you can't have high ketones. So he's an idiot. I'm sorry. But also we're going to look at some other things. All right. So just going to debunk some myths about protein for people. Like I say, it's just a guess. He's constantly guessing. We'll just keep going on. But I'm going to now talk about protein. Right, so the glucose there, by the way, is 37 milligrams per deciliter. 67, and ketones were 90. So I think, we can't tell what the body's doing without these monitors. But we're going to get into the protein. Right, so here I am. This was in the morning, and I thought I'd eat 148 gram steak. and see what happens to my blood glucose and my ketones. All right, that's the Keto Mojo that I use, by the way. So it was 625. Right, okay. Not knocked out of ketosis. Look at that. Now, the blood glucose went up. Now, people think, oh, it's gone up a bit. It's 5.7 now, so 102 milligrams per deciliter. Well, it's gone up. Oh, by the way, the ketones haven't gone up, but they haven't gone down, about 4.2. That's gone up because it takes a bit of energy to digest the protein. That's all it is. So that was at 8 a.m. And by 9 a.m., look at that. Blood glucose down at 4.9, ketones still high. So you might think, well, that's not much protein. So I thought, well, let's load some more protein. And this is quite a lot more. 40 grams of protein, 40 grams of fat, and even 4 grams of carbs, because I had a cup of coffee as well. And what happened? Well, 2 hours later after that meal, no, blood glucose isn't through the roof. It's 88 milligrams per deciliter, but my ketones are still 3.1. So even that amount of protein doesn't knock me out of ketosis, right? Very expensive to do this, by the way. The ketone strips are really, really quite expensive. So I thought, well, let's really go for it. So I did 629 grams of sirloin steak. So is that going to turn into sugar and kick me out of ketosis? Let's have a look. It was nice, that steak, by the way. 2 hours after eating, knocked out of ketosis, and my blood glucose only 79 milligrams per deciliter. So if you use just glucose, you can shout your points and think you're not in ketosis, but that's actually not true. It's categorically not true. If you're fat adapted, you can have high blood glucose. What he calls it high, I mean, I don't think 80 milligrams per deciliter or 90 milligrams per deciliter is particularly high. And you can also have high ketones. All right, so I consumed 205 grams of protein, 120 grams of fat, 5 grams of carbs. I was not kicked out of ketosis, as you quite clearly saw. My blood glucose hardly moved upwards. It just did that once, that one time, first thing in the morning after I'd slept. And I just had 148 grams of protein. Well, I just needed a little boost of glucose to help me with my digestion. So that's it. Case closed, as it says there. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Hope that was interesting for everybody. What did you think of it, Richard?
Yeah, you've been sending me the research as you've been doing it, and it's just added weight to our knowledge and understanding, and disproving these silly people that don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, it is really frustrating, isn't it? Because anyway, right, we'll get into the questions from the floor now, shall we?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. So rightio, let's go. So thank you, Jonathan. Like I say, I hope you saw that and enjoyed it, by the way. So the Cravings, I said, been on carnivore for 2 years and had some new skin tags developed recently. I've just added milk back and coffee once a day. Could this be causing them? I know that skin tags are a bad sign. What do you think?
Yeah. Brilliant question. It's unusual for carnivore. I mean, carnivore is usually the diet that will reverse skin tags. Skin tags are usually the sign of insulin resistance in the context as we understand it. So going carnivore, i.e. low carb, seems to allow us to address skin tags and reverse and remove them. So it's unusual. Could adding milk back? Quite possibly. I mean, milk is one of the things in nature that, in fact, it's probably the only thing in nature that comes with all 3 macronutrients. So the proteins, carbs, and the fats. And it's designed for rapid growth from birth. And it's something that we're not designed, in my opinion, to consume past the age of infancy, let alone from another animal. So I think milk is something that I no longer consume. I think it's something that many within our community, even when they're consuming raw, tend to only consume or be able to consume occasionally. And friends of ours within the community who have consumed milk, even raw dairy, for a prolonged period of time, have had to come away from it because of the downstream deleterious effects. So quite possibly, I mean, it's milk could cause a problem from that aspect. And the coffee, where that may be problematic, we know the coffee is high in acrylamide, but acrylamide is a potent neurotoxin. I can't see that directly having an impact from the acrylamide point of view, but possible. But more so, I think, quite possibly from the cortisol. So I think maybe consuming coffee could lead to an increased cortisol, which can lead to skin conditions, because we know the cortisol is important for the production of sebum, which is the oily substance in the skin that looks after the body, if you like, and cortisol can over activate that process. So look, the simple test with this, I think, is to remove both and see what happens. Coffee, milk, two things that I no longer consume, that I have consumed for a long period of my life. And last week, I think it was last week, and in fact, I'll do it again when we're going through the questions. I will find a video that I did 3 years ago in which I was probably 9 years into my journey and incredibly fit and healthy. I'd reversed all of my conditions, issues, and problems that I was suffering with. Yet, when I look back now, I can see that I was still clearly inflamed. Yet, my body was now medication free, and I was thriving. So it just adds more weight, I think, to how long it takes for the body to actually completely heal and repair. 9 years into my journey, and I was still seeing the results, and I'll put this picture up, Steve, when you're reading the next question up, because I think that's an important point, that, this is an ongoing thing. It's not something that it's a lifestyle. Yes, it is something you can cycle for short-term benefits, but I think to really, really reap the benefits and to undo the lifetime of abuse that we've done to now, it is something that we need to maintain, to maximize the benefits of doing so. And I think that maybe these short stints and implementing these things back in can be problematic. But I'll pull this up now, because it shocked me when I found this video recently. It was one of the first videos that I ever recorded, and you can still see how inflamed I was in this. And I look for that now. While you add to this, if you've got anything to add, and read the next question.
Yeah, I will add a little bit. Coffee can be associated with joint pain, obviously, as we've spoken about. Skin irritation can happen. Itchy bottom is the other thing, which is quite common if you have too much coffee. So it does have a little effect with your skin, but skin tags, I don't normally find anyone, I've never actually come across somebody that's happened to. Obviously the milk, possibly the sugars, the lactose, theoretically, that could nudge your insulin dynamics up a little bit, and therefore, So the best thing to do is to take them out and just prove the concept. Take them out and see what happens. If skin tags go or resolve, then it probably was one of those two things. I know Richard's going to get cross with me because he likes to be very scientific. So do I. But I think add them both, take them both out, and then add one back and see if it was that. And this is what he wants to show you.
See, look, I think you can see in my face there.
Can you zoom in on that, Richard?
Let me try. I don't know if I can with. No, it doesn't do it.
You can't zoom in. All right, okay, no worries. We've gone now. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but you can see anyway. My face is still inflamed there, despite being low body fat and having reversed most of my conditions. This was 9 years probably or so into my journey, so a number of years ago. But basically, I'm still repairing, I'm still healing and recovering, is my point.
Yeah, absolutely. We all are. I'm trying to get back to exactly where I was before I did my continual glucose monitor experiment. Carbohydrates do mess you up. I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's a Welsh name. Do you know how to pronounce that name?
Maeve, maybe?
Maeve, maybe. Yeah, Maeve, maybe. I'm gaining belly on carnivore and it's driving me nuts. I have ME and CFS and can't exercise yet. Can medications interfere with results?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, is the short. Look, it's medication. It, in my opinion, is something that we shouldn't consume long term. Now, I'm not saying to stop medications, because Stephen and I are not allowed to give medical advice. But I'm just giving you the facts in regards to how medications work within the body and how they affect the liver and the kidney. And the liver is an important tool in ketone production and fat burning. If it's impaired, if it doesn't work the way that it should, then this can most certainly affect fat loss results. It doesn't mean that you should stop your meds, and I wouldn't recommend you do that without consulting and working very closely to your doctor. But very few doctors understand this way of living. So see if you can find one who understands the ketogenic way of living. They are out there, they do exist, and they are growing in number. Belly fat on carnivore. So look, meds may be one thing. ME is usually a condition of mitochondrial dysfunction, which the ketones can improve. And this is one of the big benefits of ketone production and the utilization of things like beta hydroxybutyrate. So I'd say stick with it. It may be a case of stepping back and maybe addressing or implementing more of a ketogenic-based lifestyle to start with. So you can upregulate the gut microbiome, adapt slowly, and not throw yourself into such a deep carnivore state. Carnivore, I think, in my opinion, should be achieved mostly via incremental changes, particularly if we're coming from a state of medication. So yes, look, meds can affect, but so can lots of other things. Alcohol can affect it. Wheat germ agglutinin, has a massive impact on gaining weight. Carbohydrates, obviously, and so on and so forth. So the first protocol is removing the grains and the seed oils. These are the biggest levers that you can pull. Prioritizing natural fats and animal proteins, which is obviously what you're doing with carnivore. What I would try to do is implement test your stomach acidity. So to carry out a burp test, which basically involves consuming a quarter of a teaspoon, maybe half a teaspoon of baking soda in around 500 ml of water, and timing how long it takes you to burp after doing so. If it's within a minute or two, then stomach acidity is good. If it takes longer, then the stomach acidity is poor. And obviously, the longer it takes, the worse it is. Now, we need an acidic environment in order to digest the animal proteins and natural fats that we are consuming. So you may be consuming these foods and unable to digest and absorb the nutrients, which could lead to over consuming and a whole host of other things. So I'd say test that. If stomach acidity is low, implement things like zinc and taurine prior to a meal. Are you suffering with anything else? Diarrhea? Are you suffering with oh my goodness, what's the opposite to diarrhea? When you can't go to the loo?
Constipation.
That's the one. All of these, I can't remember the little ones. All of these are signs that the body might not be working correctly. So it may be a case of just taking a step back. To upregulate these pathways, you could consider using some C8-MCT. This will help upregulate the monocarboxylate transporters and the enzymes associated with ketone production and utilization. So there are a few things to do, but exercise isn't a prerequisite. If you can exercise, fantastic. But lots of the clients that I work with do not train, yet they manage to lose lots and lots of weight purely on controlling their diet and making sure that they consume highly nutrient dense animal proteins while avoiding the processed foods and the grains and seed oils in particular.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Now, Richard laughed because I'm going to introduce a new system. When he's got like 5 minutes to talk, I'm going to put this up. When he's got like 2 minutes left, I'm going to put that up. When I think a minute, I'm going to put that up. Little black sheep. Yeah, it's just so we get through more questions. That's all it is. Anyway, right, let's go to the next question. Some super chats. So we'll talk about that. Let's show that. John, thank you very much. €5. Wishing you guys a good day and greetings from Belgium. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Kind of you. The Feral Grandma, $2 a super sticker, which is really appreciated as well. So that's good. Cami, who is a fantastic supporter, is pointing out milk is insulinogenic. Yes. And so is coffee. Yes. Absolutely. But we were talking about the development of skin tags, whether it would be enough to develop skin tags. But yeah, it could be. I think that's why we said what we said really is to sort of experiment. Let's just have a little look, follow up from Maeve who said that. She said, thank you, and no colon, so no microbiome, Crohn's disease. Thank you so much for the advice. I mean, you definitely have the chips stacked against you, but you're going to give yourself the best opportunity to be the best version of yourself eating this way. So I'm glad that helped. That's really good. The super chats are just amazing. Right, let's go to the next question then, which is Kinks. I love the names. Can a carnivore diet lead to nutrient deficiencies, especially iodine, folate, magnesium, and calcium, if you're not consuming eggs, dairy, or organs? And do you support any supplementation? Thanks.
So let me address the last part first. Yes, look, I make supplements. I own a supplement business. I think that they certainly have their place, but I do believe that the foundation to optimal health and well-being is always going to be highly nutritious, nutrient-dense animal proteins and natural fats. I'm not against supplementation, and I do think that we can thrive on an all-meat diet alone. I also believe that many of us are coming from a damaged background, and maybe the body is not quite capable of absorbing the nutrients that are found within the animal proteins. But in regards to what we find within the animal proteins, I mean, beef, lamb, all of these things are incredibly nutrient dense. There's plenty of magnesium found within beef. There's around 25 milligrams per 100 grams. The average steak being maybe 500 grams, so obviously 5 times that amount. Calcium, too much calcium on carnivore isn't a problem. It's usually the opposite, because people do consume the raw dairy, the eggs, and the cheese and things, and this can offset the absorption of the magnesium. But there's plenty of calcium found within organ meats. Look, in my opinion, if we can live a animal-based lifestyle with consuming some organ meats, then I'm a big fan of eggs also. I think eggs are incredibly nutrient dense, fantastic source of folate. Beef liver, one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. But look, we see the likes of our good friend Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who just consumes typically grass-fed beef, and he thrives. There's others out there that have done this for quite some time and thrive. I've done lion for quite some time, but I do find I thrive better if I eat the animal whole. I do find better. I work better if I consume eggs. I don't consume dairy. I don't consume milk whatsoever. Organ meats 1 to 2 times a week. But look, we can obtain everything. The other thing to bear in mind with this is, if we look at what we find in plant compounds, if we look at what they contain per 100 grams, and what we're told that they contain is this much. But the fact is that many of these compounds are blocked by the fiber, the lectins, the phytic acid, and lots of the other anti-nutrients, the flavonoids, and so on and so forth. These things will block the absorption of many of the nutrients found within, by as much as like 85%. And phytic acid can block the absorption of things like zinc, iron, and magnesium by as much as 100%. So even though a plant may contain this much of a compound, the likelihood of it absorbing all of that, well, it just doesn't happen. They're not 100% bioavailable. The reality is we're absorbing this much at best with a whole host of other toxins. When we look at these nutrients in animal proteins, we absorb almost all of them, if not all of them. So they carry up to 100% bioavailability. So if we look per 100 grams, they may appear to have less per 100 grams, but there's a few things to bear in mind with this. One, the bioavailability is far higher. And secondly, we don't typically eat things by 100 grams in nature. So a pack of kale, 100 grams of kale is quite a lot of kale. But we wouldn't eat just 100 grams of a beef steak or some lamb or some minced beef, for example. It would be maybe 500 grams. So these numbers we can also comfortably multiply by this. But there are things that you can put in, So seafood is a fantastic source of things like iodine. The calcium, as you say, if you are consuming eggs, fantastic source. Organ meats, I do think they confer huge benefits. I think they are something we should implement 2 or 3 times a week. You don't need an awful lot. I do believe we should eat the animal as a whole. which is what we would have done through our evolutionary period. And I also find that many of us who methylate slowly do very well on adding in some organ meats because of the additional B2, which is difficult to obtain from just beef and lamb. So look, yes is the short answer. We see people out there thriving. We question the nutrient deficiencies in animal proteins, but nobody questions the nutrient deficiency in a bowl of cereal. There's nothing in there, it's just full of anti-nutrients and sugar. Pop-Tarts, nobody questioned anything when I was stuffing my face with Pop-Tarts, and now I'm eating highly nutrient-dense animal proteins full of natural fats and everything that I need. These questions seem to come up, but this is certainly the starting place for optimal health and well-being. If you find that you're struggling or you believe that you may be deficient, then organ meats, eggs, why not? And then beyond this, if you're still struggling, I'm not against supplementation. As I say, I own a supplement company, but I don't promote the supplements as the first port of call. The foundation should be natural. It should be your highly nutrient dense animal proteins because they are so nutrient dense.
That's great. Yeah, good answer. Thank you very much. Can't thank Tanya enough for her CA dollars, Canadian, I'm assuming, of 20. Thank you to my UK super team. Always a good Sunday afternoon chat here in Toronto. Oh yeah, there you go. 2 years carnivore, learning every day. Thanks again. Your chat is fueling my Sunday hike. That's good. That's good to know. So I'm assuming someone's listening mobile, with some headphones in, listening to us rabbit away. Hopefully our dulcet tones and Richard's wonderful Welsh accent doesn't send you to a sort of nice sleepy mood, but more get you going on your hike. That's great. Thanks so much. Scott, Canadian dollars again, $6.99. What's your view on light to moderate drinking as a carnivore? And I'm assuming we're talking alcoholic drinks here, not just drinking water and stuff. Obviously, no one drinks for their health. Now, I say obviously because some people say, well, red wine is supposed to be good for you. That's never been tested. Actually, they took a compound out of red wine and that looked like it had some benefits. But when it's in wine, it didn't. So I would say it is very contextual, this, because if you're one of those that wants a glass of red wine on a Sunday with their roast beef, and they do that once a week, I would say go for it. But I certainly wouldn't say that's going to improve your health. I just think that's just a fact. But I also believe in your mental well-being or your social well-being. If it's a good thing, if let's say you're a member of some sort of fancy pants wine club. I know it's not just about wine. We could talk about spirits, but I'm just using that as an example. And you've always liked wine and you go once a month to somewhere where there's a vineyard, then, do it, because being with community, being out, it's a great thing. I don't think it's all about just your intake. When we talk to people and give them answers, it's never about exactly just food or just what you drink or don't eat and don't drink. It's also about how you sleep, how you get on with other people. Do you get out? There's a fly in the studio, which is a bit annoying. There you go. So, right. Anyway, yeah, so that's my 2 pence. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, look, just to reiterate what you've just said, we know alcohol is poison. If it was invented today, it wouldn't be on the shelves in the supermarket because it's that damaging. But look, it's been around for a very long time and it's not going anywhere, in a hurry. And I completely agree. And I use the same thing when it comes to meeting friends with coffee. If your social catch up with a friend is a glass of wine once a week, and that makes you feel good, and that's an important part of your weekly routine, then that is an important part, because these things are multifactorial. It isn't just about nutrition. It's about community and being around other like-minded positive people. So if that brings you joy, then that is a benefit. Look, it's in an ideal world we wouldn't drink it, but I live in the real world. I used to drink wine every night. If it wasn't wine, it was a liter of whiskey. And yes, I was technically classed as an alcoholic, but I no longer drink at all anymore. I don't miss it. I have no intention to do so, but it's taken me a long time to get there. So what I would say is, look, if it is going to be part of your healthy diet, spirits are going to be least problematic for the reason that they're low in sugar. So what they're going to do is they're going to take oxidative priority, which basically means your body's going to work hard to remove that instead of burning fat, but it will not pull you from a ketogenic state. It will just switch off fat burning in that moment when the alcohol has been processed for fuel. Because it'll take oxidative priority, then you slip back into fat burning. If you were to drink lager or beer or cider, for example, these are going to contain carbohydrates, which might be enough to pull one from a ketogenic state, which means that you're going to have to go back into and through the keto flu, and it could take a number of days in order to do this. So that is going to throw you from a ketogenic state and very much hinder your progress and ramp up the cravings and all of these other things. So if you are drinking spirits and strong wine, like a dry white wine, for example, that the higher the percentage, the lower the sugar is going to be. I would say to do it, in moderation, don't overconsume. And just bear in mind that, you don't have to just eat meat to be a carnivore. And I think the carnivore community is incredibly dogmatic. If we look from a caloric perspective, I know we don't work in calories, but from an units of energy perspective, 80% of your energy is coming from animal proteins and fats, still makes you carnivore. There's still that room, that wiggle room, if you like. We would have consumed compounds that were outside of animal proteins through our evolutionary period, but they would have made a very small portion. So look, you need to look at the bigger picture. If that drink once a week with friends makes you feel good, then that does confer a benefit. But if you can be without it, even better.
That's better. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Just time to remind you that if you like this and you want to ask more questions, you want to be part of a community, I think that was a good segue into that. You could join our school community. I will put a link in the chat for everybody once I've finished waffling on. I'll do it now, actually. So yeah, if you join our community, there's a board there. It's a bit like Facebook where you can put your questions, and there will be sort of support from different members. So Gary's asked this question. He's at 23 replies. That Mike has asked a question, 4 replies, 13 replies there. Gary's obviously very busy at the moment. Bobby there asking questions, 12 replies. So you can go on and you can get some support from other people. Not only that, you can go into the classroom and you can take part in the courses. And the more you're active on the community pages and liking other people's posts, you go up levels with your activity. You can go right up to level 9. Level 9 is a paid for thing, but level 8, for instance, is my books. You get those for nothing. We've also got problem solving, free ebooks and videos, protein, all about protein, ebooks, videos, fruit and veg, same thing. Dairy, the same thing. Thyroid. 19 tips is the second level for carnivore, and we start at level 1 with a ketogenic course. Also the calendar. So this is where we are in May. We tend to do 1 to 2 or maybe 3 or maybe 4 Q&As. It depends how busy we are. So we've got a question and answer session. Then we did one on Thursday. Well, this week we didn't do one on Thursday, but here we are doing tonight's at 7, and there's one at 8 for members. So you could join and you could come in and see an extra 45 minutes, 35 to 45 minutes of questions. And then we've got one tomorrow night, a whole hour. And then we need to talk about next Sunday because we're not here next Sunday. But anyway, that's the school. So just so you know, we do this. We've been doing this for nearly 2 years now, I think. Our live questions and answers every single Sunday for an hour, completely free for everybody. But next week, Richard is not available. This is also to our school members, by the way, who are in the room. But obviously, we'll tell them when we're in the school meeting. Richard is away next weekend because he's speaking at a conference, because he's an expert in human physiology, and I'm away with the filming documentary all about this way of eating and health and physiology, and I'm in Tennessee doing that. So next weekend there is no live Q and answer. So did you want to go on straight onto the questions now, Richard? We don't want to plug those 2 things.
Yeah, let's crush some questions.
Okay, Scott has got a question here. More so referring to 5 to 10 drinks a week. as opposed to one. Have no issue socializing without. Curious on your view on that at the moment from a purely health lens. 5 to 10 drinks a week is not going to benefit your health. That's my thoughts. And I think Richard just alluded to that. So, but thank you for the super chat. Sorry, it's not the answer you want. But neither of us can see any actual health benefits.
I think continuous drinking, over a prolonged period of time, i.e. a little bit every night, is going to be problematic. I think you'd be better off having 1 or 2 days where you indulge over, continuously consuming every day of the week. I don't think that's conferring benefits.
No. Right. And I don't think that's controversial, really. MJ saying, I'm cutting my protein down to around 230 grams from around 300. Don't forget my experiment earlier was, I think, about 208 grams in one day, and showed that my blood glucose didn't really go up and my ketones didn't go down. Just thought I'd point that out. But anyway, cutting my protein around 230 grams from 300 and adding more beef and lamb fat. I'm 190 pounds. Benefits? ? I've ordered 20 kilograms of fat. Well, I mean, beef and lamb is fantastic. Beef and lamb fat is okay as well. It's hard without knowing how tall you are, what your activity levels are, what your goals are. If you're 190 pounds, probably 300 grams of protein was too much per day. I'm assuming you're cutting down because there is an issue. Maybe your body composition isn't where you want to be, or you're not feeling as optimal as you would like to be. And you're doing the higher fat. Possibly some people do the higher fat because they believe it can help with their body composition and you can lose body fat, and that's definitely true. Absolutely 100%. As long as you're not mixing in sugars, you're going to be fine if you just have proteins and fats. But I do think, don't buy into this, you can't eat too much, and kind of, you definitely can eat too much anyway. The phrase too much means too much. You can have too much water. It doesn't mean water's bad, but too much water is bad. So it's getting the right amount. But I think 300 does sound rather a lot for someone that's 190 pounds.
Yeah, from a general perspective, I think so. I think maybe MJ is probably experimenting with different protein amounts, because looking at his picture there, it looks incredibly ripped and shredded. So I'm assuming that he trains and works out incredibly hard. When I was experimenting with bodybuilding, I found 1.5 grams per pound to be beneficial. I still found that I was making the same gains from one. But the 1.5, there was no further benefit in regards to mTOR activation and muscle building, muscle protein synthesis, but it did help with satiety, and it didn't seem to cause many problems because of the volume of training. Those energy demands were there, but I mean, 300, it does seem high continuously. 230 probably seems closer to where you want to be. Increase in the fat. I mean, fat is incredible. It's super nutrient dense, particularly lamb fat. Lamb fat contains 10 times the level of omega-3s, which are going to be beneficial. Beef and lamb fat, super beneficial generally anyway. And look, what I think is it's good to experiment with moving these macros around in regards to adjusting protein to fat ratios, because I don't believe that we should just be, this is the ratio and that's it, because this isn't how we've evolved. Just remember, we would have caught the animal as a whole. We would have consumed everything within that animal, and that animal contains fatty cuts and lean cuts. And what we tend to do now within the ketogenic carnivore community is that we can eat fat. So we prioritize fat for everything. We load fat, and fat is fantastic. But then we sort of sometimes, I think, maybe go too far in regards to consuming the fat, and then that can be problematic and lead to weight gain. And as you rightly say, Steve, maybe too much protein could elicit more of a slight insulin response, which over time in consumption with the fat maybe lead to weight gain. And it's not just one rule. I mean, both of these increases can have negative and positive effects. Increase in protein can also massively help with fat loss, because it increases the thermic effect, because the amount of energy used to process the protein is considerably higher. It's around 25 to 35% from protein, which basically means at least a quarter of the energy from that protein that it contains is used to process, which can help fuel fat loss. So what I'd say, MJ, is experiment. See how you feel, see how it affects your mental clarity. If you are fat devoid or deficient, then what you may find is your mental clarity will improve, your energy, your sessions could improve. You may add more into mass to the muscle in regards to the intracellular myolipids, so your lifts may improve, but it may also lead to a little bit of fat gain, which is fine, because all we need to do then is switch the lever the other way. Do some protein sparing modified fasting, which is increasing the protein and reducing the fat, and then we can burn that back off. So this is a cycle. This is something that I would have implemented while I was training in bodybuilding. So it was never a set thing in regards to this much protein, this much fat. I always changed it up depending on what my goals were and how my body reacted.
Brilliant. Now, Scott, again, a super chat. As a carnivore, how problematic is it likely to be long term? Now, with the drinking again, and obviously, this show is to sort of be as broad and wide as possible. If you want to send me an email, Scott, to zerocarbcoach@gmail.com, I'll send you some stuff with some links so you can look it all up. But in short, I mean, basically, you will possibly get oxidative stress and inflammation from drinking, because alcoholic metabolism, part of which is obviously in the liver, part is in the brain, does generate free radicals. So even low dose repeat exposure could lead to some oxidative damage. That's one of the easiest things to go through. The cumulative effect of constantly drinking can definitely put a strain on the liver, can add to higher blood pressure. Literally, there's no safe level, really. Hopefully that's enough. But yeah, like I say, the offer's there to send you lots of information about it. So just use my email and I will send you even more, because I appreciate the super chats and we want to give you the answers. But we don't really want to talk about alcoholic consumption too much, because there's millions of questions as well about other things. But anyway, right, that's great. I hope that's helpful for you, Scott. Let's go to the next question. This is from Norman. What's your experience with post-COVID patients suffering pain when using antibiotics 4 years after COVID? Every time I use an antibiotic, I seem to suffer pain in my body. Thank you.
Yeah. Interesting topic. This, this is a topic that the C word.
We can't really talk about.
Yeah. It's Stephen and I have been shadow banned so many times from discussing this. Yeah, it's an awkward one, Steve, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it gets us into trouble quite a lot. Look, what I'd say is,
can I just want to Norman, your question is appreciated. If you're in the school group, we can speak a little bit more freely, but YouTube are quite happy to take both our channels down instantly if we talk about COVID or anything around it. Even just saying it can flag this. Honestly, I wish I hadn't even said it, because it flags up what we're doing. And even if we just give you factual information, they can completely wipe us out. And that's happened to other people. Seriously. I would say pain could be caused by many things. So we can talk about antibiotics. Let's forget your other part of it. But antibiotics can disrupt all the gut flora. So that's so you'll get gastritis, cramps, bloating, diarrhea, that sort of stuff. Certain antibiotics are known to cause tendon pain, joint pains, nerve pains. So forget the other bit that you talked about. You could be sort of more sensitive because of the other thing to all of these things. So antibiotics, how they work, very basic. The cell has a membrane and it pops it, kills it, but it kills everything. Broad spectrum antibiotics do exactly what it says. It kills absolutely everything. So that would be my answer, is possibly, or even sort of email myself or Richard and go into a bit more detail.
Perfect.
Yeah. Should we do the next one? Sorry about that, Norman. Hopefully that is helpful. It's not us being unhelpful. Right. Question. Zana? Do you reckon? Zana? Anyway, right. Can too much iodine or iodine cause too much iodine, or just iodine on its own, I guess, cause thyroid nodules? Taking thyroetane and desiccated thyroid for low T3 and just found 3 level 3 nodules.
Yeah, look, excess iodine intake can disrupt normal thyroid function and lead to, it can stimulate thyroid tissue growth, which can lead to nodules, but so can iodine deficiency. I think it's excess iodine is far more rare than iodine deficiency. I would guess, Steve. And I think there are simple tests that you can do in regards to this, and Steve can talk to you about an iodine clearance test shortly. But I think it's unlikely, especially if we're suffering with iodine issues. T3, there's lots of things that can impact the production of T3. Cruciferous vegetables, for example, things like broccoli can massively interrupt the production of T3 because of a compound called sulforaphane, which is mostly excreted in the body, but it's a goitrogen which competes for the absorption of iodine at the thyroid. So the first protocol is, if you are living a ketogenic-based lifestyle, remove all cruciferous vegetables, brassica-type vegetables. So that's your kale and your spinach and your broccoli, incredibly problematic. The other thing is supplementation of vitamin A in the form of beta-carotene, incredibly problematic. And any plants that are high in beta-carotene, super problematic. And the reason for this is that beta-carotene is not true retinol. Retinol is true vitamin A, and beta-carotene is a precursor. And in order for us to convert this beta-carotene into retinol, that involves a few steps and different enzymes, one being BCMO, but another is T4. So we need T4 to convert the beta-carotene into the active form of retinol, thus depleting the T4 and therefore further conversion into T3. As a double kick in the teeth, any retinol that is converted, which is typically over 20 times less. So if we have this much beta-carotene, we're left with this much retinol. So beta-carotene is not retinol. They're not the same thing. The retinol that is left is then used to convert the remaining T4 into T3, thus leaving the body devoid of true vitamin A or retinol. So I would address them first. You know, I don't know if you are ketogenic or carnivore, Zaina, but it's if you are consuming brassica vegetables, broccoli, spinach, kale, they would be my first protocol. Remove them and actively try to decrease any supplementation in beta-carotene or any plant compounds high in beta-carotene, because this is going to have a massive impact on potentially on low T3, especially if you already have a pre-existing condition. Spinach and turmeric also incredibly damaging to the thyroid because of the oxalates. So you may consider removing things like turmeric and the black pepper. The black pepper stops the body from removing the turmeric, and it also blocks phase 2 detoxification in the liver. So there's lots to go after. Much of the clients that I work with who suffer with thyroid problems, they've been developed through the overconsumption of vegetables, not the overconsumption of iodine.
Brilliant answer. And of course, low T3, low in inverted commas. Don't forget, low T3 is quite common on carnivore and keto, but it's not low as in low and a problem. It's just that you need less. The body is really smart, doesn't make things that you need. And because T3 is absolutely fundamental in moving pyruvate across the mitochondrial membrane, which is glycolysis, which is the metabolism of carbohydrates, and we're not doing that, you need less. So the body's smart. So you could be being told to take stuff that you don't actually need. So this is the problem with doing a sort of live stream like this, very broad. We really probably need to know a lot more about you. Iodine, if you take too much, your body is excellent at excreting it. You can do what's called an iodine clearance test, where you have a tablet or even drink with iodine in, and then over 24 hours, your urine is measured. And if you are iodine deficient, it will tell you. The test will tell you that. It will also tell you if you're not iodine deficient, and because you'll be excreting it out. So it's a great question. possibly one of those things that might need a bit of coaching, actually, or just one consultation with either myself or Richard, I think. Right, I'm just going to double check we haven't got any more super chats. Yes, we have, so I don't want to miss those out. Like I say, if you are waiting for us to answer the question, you can see that we try to do it really thoroughly. And if you do a super chat, you jump the queue, basically. It helps us being able to do this. So Michael has just given us $4.99, which is great. I can't see a question, Michael, so that's just a really nice, generous offer, which does help us to do these things. So that's really good. And we've also got a super chat from Wesley. Currently keto, trying to start carnivore. Sometimes when I'm hungry, I make food only to find it unappetizing. Which signal should I listen to? Well, you should listen to your hunger signals. And this sounds cheeky, and it isn't really meant to. You've got to pick food that you enjoy. If you're doing it because you're following like an influencer who says eat, let's say bacon and eggs. Not many people don't like bacon and eggs. Let's say you're eating bacon and eggs because that's been suggested as a great way to start your day, and you don't like bacon, let's say, then don't eat it. If it's unappetizing. If it's unappetizing because you really weren't hungry in the first place, well, that's a different game, really. And you can test yourself by saying, right, I'm hungry, I'm going to cook something. Oh, hang on a minute, am I really hungry? Look at the clock. Let's see if I'm really hungry in 20 minutes. I'm going to get on with my day. And if in 20 minutes I still feel exactly the same, then I'm going to cook something. I think you'll find yourself every so often realizing that you're not really hungry. You're just eating out of routine, habit, boredom, stress. You're not eating for the real reason that food is there for you, and that's to nourish your body. Very much into sort of things like dopamine hits as well, even on carnivore. If you're a little bit fed up, well, big juicy ribeye is going to cheer you up because it's fabulous. But you might not actually be hungry. You might just be feeling like you need to pick me up.
Yeah, 100%. I think, look, it is tough to try to discover and learn the body signals in regards to the difference between cravings and hunger. And it's one of the things that I quite often do is find something. Like, I boil eggs most days. I don't eat them all the time, because there are other people there who, my little girl loves eggs. But look, if I'm hungry, I'll pick up an egg. Now, an egg contains protein and fat, everything the body needs. And as you say, Wesley, sometimes you just don't want it. So that may be a craving over a hunger signal. Cheese is another good one. If you're hungry, generally that you'll enjoy eating cheese. Cheese is highly addictive. So if it's something you start eating and you don't really want it, then it's probably a craving. It does take time to repair, these hunger signals that have been damaged over many years. But as Stephen says, I think if you consume the high fat animal proteins, this is the best way to upregulate the body's ability to recognize these cravings. But that's the test I would do, and I think that the advice, Steve, that you've just given there, wait 20 minutes, is perfect, because quite often, like, I'll become hungry in work. And then, right, okay, maybe I'll go and cook something. I get tied up with some work, and then 20 minutes is gone, and I'm no longer hungry. And it's like, okay, so it was just a craving. It wasn't, a hunger signal. And then I find that I go another 5 or 6 hours before I've actually eaten. So it's so try to listen to the body to a degree. But I think that is very much an issue in regards to the disruption between the hunger signals and craving signals currently.
Okay. Michelle's got a great question here, talking about, what do you think of Reuteri yogurt? Well, it's a fermented dairy product, which I've recently been told is excellent by a mutual friend of ours, Simon, because I'm not a fan of yogurt, because yogurt is my downfall. If I have yogurt, it lights up my dopamine receptors, and boy, I can eat tons of it. And it's definitely a bad thing for me to eat, but not for the reasons you're asking, because obviously you're asking about a particular culture, and it's not the same as a store-bought yogurt, obviously, because it's something that people make at home. and it's got this specific probiotic bacterium for the gut. I mean, that's basically what it is. So I'm not sold on it, but I know people like William Davis, who's like and respect. He's really, he's the wheat belly guy. He doesn't like people eating grains and stuff. He thinks it's absolutely fantastic. But yes, I think, that bacteria is associated with increased oxytocin. I've been trying to get into it and find out more about it, but it's not something I've used with clients. In 6 years of carnivore coaching, 10 years of coaching low carb, keto, and carnivore, I've never felt the need to use it. But if someone says they get benefit from it, I will believe them, because that's what I do. But I've not felt a need to use it. Well, what do you reckon, Richard? Do you use it or know anyone that does?
So look, I think that there's a place for things like this, especially as we gravitate towards these changing of products that we consume. I don't think it's essential. I don't think we need it. We certainly don't need it to increase alpha diversity of the gut or improve, the health of the gut. But it's weighing up the potential damage against, the potential reward. And I don't think it's that problematic. So if it's something that allows you to maintain the journey, then that becomes a net positive. So I think it has its place, but it's not something that you have to put in. Meat. A meat-only diet does increase the alpha diversity of the gut, which, in fact, you interviewed Benazadi recently, who I think spoke about this, isn't it? So it's not essential, and being fermented, I think if we are going to consume any compounds such as this, then fermented is going to be best.
Yeah, Phil, you're right. You just said it's just yogurt is just the vehicle for the bacteria, basically. Herbert has just given us €5, which is fantastic. I am going to put the link to the school group, because that's all we've got time for. We've come up to 4 minutes away, and we tend to rush off. So for those people that didn't get a question answered, I'm really sorry. We do try to answer every question, but also we don't like to change people. So crafted performance, you asked me about my Dave Feldman interview. We've had to put it off, and we're doing it this week. So that's your question out of the way. Yes, and I will ask those sort of questions that you've put in there. Everybody else, sorry about that. We didn't get to everything. If you are going to ask questions about bloods, the more information, the better. Of course, you can also email me if you want to do a consultation over your bloods. We can do that. You can email Richard to do consultations as well. He is the world's top nutritionist. So don't miss out on that. We are going to go over to school now, double checking we haven't got any more lives, super chats and all that, because they are appreciated. Don't forget, next week we are not here, and it's a real shame, because we're getting such a nice sort of momentum going. Lots of people coming on, and same faces coming on. But obviously, we're in demand, which is a really nice thing. I don't like to sort of brag, but that is the reality. So Richard has been asked to talk in Spain, and do 4 presentations over there, and that's why he's good at answering questions, and that's why he's there, because he knows his stuff. And I'm afraid we're going to not be around next week, which is a real shame, but we'll definitely be back the following Sunday, bright and breezy, 7 p.m. here in state control Britain, and we look forward to all your questions then. So thank you very much indeed. Richard, do you want to say anything about your thing that you're doing, or just say goodbye?
Yeah, look, I will really quickly give it a shout out. I'll pop a link also. It's so I'm attending the men's Ultimate Men's Health Retreat, which is being held and organized by our good friend Alan Reeves. An incredible event. There's a number of speakers. Dorian Yates is going to be there. It's going to be full of like-minded people, and an opportunity to mix and be around people who are the same as you and I, because what I find in this community is many of us are ostracized. This is it's a men's only event. So it's a chance for you to get away from the stresses of your modern life and just, relax and chill out with like-minded people. Alan's got a whole host of things planned, along with talks, cold water dipping, gym sessions with Dorian Yates, and lots of other cool stuff going on there. No, there's me saying this. I don't know if there's any tickets left. Last time I was talking to Al, he only had 1 ticket left, and that's because someone had to pull out last minute because of a medical situation. So I mean, that ticket may have even gone. But if you are interested, take your chance. I've just popped a link in there. It's going to be an incredible event, and I'm super looking forward to meeting the guys and talking there.
Brilliant. Thank you, YouTubers. See you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Thank you all.